What's up, everyone? Welcome to This Day in Philly Sports History for March 20th, 2025. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. Welcome to a Thursday edition of the podcast. Happy first day of spring. Yesterday was absolutely beautiful. Today seems to be more of the same until later when the winds and the rains come. But let's enjoy the first day of spring. It's also the first day of March Madness, one of my favorite days of the year. I'll get more into that here in a minute. Quick programming note, don't forget, tomorrow is Fridays with AI. Going to do a little bit of a Phillies theme tomorrow, and what AI thinks may shock you. Be sure to follow me on social media, Jimbo_Mont on Twitter and TikTok, on Instagram at PhillyJimbo. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Continue to spread that word as we continue to grow. Don't forget, go check out my friend Lenny Wagner. He is the author of Playing with the Best, One Man's Journey Through the Golden Era of Sports. It's the story of Walter French, but it's not like most biographies, and that's why I like this book, and I'll get more. I'm going to highlight the book April 1st through 6th as we get into April, but typical biography really talks a lot about the person, and there's a lot of information about Walter French. His story is just phenomenal, but this book gives you a glimpse into what was going on in the world of sports as well as just the world around us during that time frame. So if you're a history person, like to learn about different time periods and the post, I guess, World War I, post World War I into the 20s, leading into the Depression and World War II. It's kind of one of my favorite time periods in time, just because culturally the country was just completely changing, and this book I think captures a lot, specifically from a sports angle, what was going on in the world of sports. So check out Playing with the Best, One Man's Journey Through the Golden Era of Sports, written by Lenny Wagner. And he will be doing another book signing. If you were able to get out last night, he did one. The next one will be April 8th at the Mount Laurel Historical Society. All the information you need is in the description in wherever you're listening or watching to this. But Walter French, an amazing story. There's a little bit of March Madness in there too, if you are into that. So go check out Lenny's book about Walter French. All right, let's start with a recap of yesterday's question of the day. I asked you, in honor of Brandon Graham retiring, what is the biggest play? And I purposely left that or used that word biggest play in Eagles history. I didn't say greatest. I didn't say best. I said biggest. 43% of you said it was the Philly special, followed up by 33% saying it was BG's strip sack. I had some people say Coop and the dagger from this previous Super Bowl. And then some people threw in some, like 4th and 26 was mentioned, the miracle of the Meadowlands with Deshaun's punt, Vaisikahima's punt return against the Giants when he punched the goalpost. But for my money, and usually I'm right in line with what everybody says. And yes, the Philly special probably was the best play, possibly the greatest play in Eagles history, likely the greatest play in Super Bowl history. But to me, the biggest play is Brandon Graham's strip sack, because I don't think they win that game without that sack. And maybe it was the old Philly in me, but I just had a strange feeling. They couldn't stop Tom Brady at that point. So there's no doubt in my mind he would have come down and scored. Now, who knows? Maybe Nick Foles would have led the Eagles back. I don't know. But that, to me, was the biggest play in the history of the Eagles, because to me, it set up the field goal to put them up 8, which ultimately that 8 proved to be key. And I still say I did not believe or didn't let it sink in until I actually saw the confetti falling. I was just talking, ironically enough, to Lenny the other day, and to me, I watched the replays, and I still wait for them to throw a flag on that Hail Mary. So for me, Brandon Graham's strip sack is the biggest play. Not the best, not the greatest, but the most impactful play. Maybe if I worded it that way, it would have been different. And sure, the Philly special, one of my all-time favorite plays, probably set the tone and help propel the Eagles, because if they don't get 7 points there, who knows what happens after halftime. But biggest play, Brandon Graham's strip sack. Like I said, I was talking with Lenny, and ironically, he was a neighbor of Brandon Graham. Had nothing but great things to say about him. I guess Brandon lived in Jersey before he moved back into the city when he tore his ACL, but said he was just a great guy. Everybody loved him, and it says something about the kind of person you are, because I've heard nobody has ever said a bad thing about Brandon Graham. I kind of put him up there in a kind of, not maybe on the play of field, but like a Brian Dawkins. Nobody ever said anything bad about Brian Dawkins. Nobody ever says anything about Brandon Graham. So we continue to celebrate Brandon Graham. But to me, the strip sack is the biggest play in Eagles history. Great neighbor too. So BG, gonna miss you, buddy. But I did mention yesterday the longest tenured, and as I always say, I like to give you accurate facts and information. So currently, and I didn't know this. This is crazy. The current longest tenured Philadelphia athlete is Sean Couturier, who's been here for 13 years. Lane's been here for 12. Nola has been here for 11 years. Embiid and Travis Konecny for 9 years. Unfortunately for Joel, he's probably only played a total of maybe 3.5 years out of those 9 he's been here. But we're not going to get into that today. But Brandon Graham obviously is the longest tenured Eagle of all time. I mentioned Schmitty. He's the longest tenured Philadelphia athlete of all time with 18 years with the Phillies. Bobby Clark and Claude Giroux, surprisingly. I didn't realize G was here for 15 years. And then for the Sixers, Hal Greer and Dolph Schayes also were here for 15 years. Now, some of theirs overlapped into Syracuse as well, but we'll count that for the franchise. But there is some Eagles news, though. And I don't know what to make of this story. And the Packers, which we already know, don't like the tush push. We saw Jordan Love try to run it last year and comically could not run it. They've officially proposed to ban the tush push in the name of player safety, which nobody's ever gotten hurt from the tush push, and pace of play. Not really sure how the tush push slows down the pace of play. If somebody could explain that to me, I would greatly appreciate it. Who knows what's going to happen with it? I do think there's enough support, or there's not enough support to completely get rid of it. It's kind of one of those things. The Eagles have figured out something. It's almost like a cheat code. They run it better than anybody else, and because nobody else can figure out how to stop it, everybody's like, oh, you got to ban it, which is ridiculous. The Eagles did propose an official rule change, which I actually really, really like. And I never really understood this either, especially for football. I could see it in hockey where they do the overtime or the shootout and then the overtime, or I guess overtime, then a shootout. Because, I mean, they play 82 games. But in the NFL, the fact that the overtime rule is not the same for regular season and the playoffs, never really understood that. So the Eagles have proposed that you kind of do it the same way as you do it in the playoffs. And I didn't read like the official thing, so I don't know if that means they keep playing or whether like you stop it after one full period. Like I don't know the details, but I do think it should be consistent across the board. Very much like the ghost runner in Major League Baseball, where you don't have that in the playoffs. And like to me, it's kind of like you want to make it consistent. So we'll see what happens with both of them. I do like kind of aligning everything for the overtime rules. The tush push, I mean, all you got to do is, it's simple. Get a quarterback who can run or squat 600 pounds. Get an offensive line that averages 350 pounds, and you can be successful. It's very, very easy. Or build your defensive line to stop it. I don't know. But some Phillies news, and it's good to see Taijuan Walker in midseason form. 3.2 or 3 2/3 innings yesterday, 9 hits, 6 runs allowed, all of them earned, 3 home runs. His velocity maxed out at 93.9 against the Yankees of all teams, who need some pitching help. And the way Taiwan was pitching in the spring would have been a good. So, like, of all teams to have your blow-up game in the spring against, the Yankees, who probably were looking to be a trade partner. However, and this scares the living hell out of me, because Ranger Suarez's back was a little stiff. And we know that's what happened to him last year. He did say it's not nearly as bad as it was last year, so they've kind of pushed back his next spring training start, so we'll see where that goes. Rob Thompson said 20 to 48 hours. The next 20 to 48 hours is what we'll see, which may mean that Taijuan Walker could be our 5th starter once again. Hopefully he goes back to the way he was beginning of the spring and not now, but seems like he's in mid-season form. Brandon Marsh is back. That knee injury didn't seem too serious. Went 2 for 2 with a homer yesterday. And we're a week away from spring training, or from the regular season, opening day down in Washington. Looking forward to that. And I mentioned Fridays with AI. Tomorrow, we're going to have AI simulate the Phillies 2025 season for us to see what AI thinks. Don't know if the AI is going to be on the same level with the Phillies as they were with Carson Wentz, but if AI is on the same level as Carson Wentz, it means the Phillies are probably going to go 162-0. But we'll find out tomorrow. That's Fridays with AI. Sixers lost 133-100. Just a brutal game. Oklahoma City's a good team, though. Didn't play anybody, but they're a good team. Quentin Grimes did have 28 points. I hope they find a way to keep him. Our draft status tracker, they're currently tied for that 5th spot in the lottery with the Nets, one ahead of the Toronto Raptors with 14 games left. Lots of time for the Sixers to screw this up for us. Flyers also in 5th place in their draft lottery, which I believe, and like I said, I think I mentioned this last week, the NHL lottery process isn't quite as confusing as the NBA's, but there's only a certain amount of spots teams can move up. But I think being in the 5th spot, the Flyers would have the shot at a number 1 pick. They're in action tonight against the Capitals, a game they could very easily lose, so we'll see. Be sure to check out my friends over at the Clashing Conferences podcast. Lots of great things going on with their sports fan network. Go to theclashingconferences.com to find out more details on how you can get involved in what they have to offer. A great group of guys. Their podcasts are available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. They've been doing a lot of March Madness stuff. And then for the first day of spring, for March Madness, go to Philly Goat, do some spring shopping. They got you covered with shirts, shoes. I'm really looking to those golf shirts. Tomorrow's payday, so I'm going to look and probably buy one of the golf shirts for my golf trip that's coming up in a couple weeks. But go check them out. Be sure to use that promo code Jim Montgomery to take 10% off your order. That's phillygoat.com. Promo code Jim Montgomery to take 10% off of your order. All right, I mentioned it's the first day of March Madness. 3rd year in a row, we don't have any Big 5 schools to root for, but March Madness is always one of my favorite things. I think it's my favorite sporting event, and I'll get more into that. But going back to when I was a kid, getting the bracket out of the newspaper, that's how old I am, before computers and printers. But filling out your bracket out of the newspaper, you used to always look at Dick Girardi, always filled his out. He's the one that taught me about upsets. The 12-5 always happens and things like that. But something over the years, I remember going into middle school with my friend Mike, who is up this weekend, always comes up for March Madness, so looking forward to seeing him tomorrow night. But if you remember the old school Walkmans that had the radio on them with the earphones that would detach, and this is kids out there, there was a point in time where things weren't Bluetooth and wireless. We actually had cords, but poking a hole in the pockets of a hoodie, running your earphones up through there, making sure you had extra sets of batteries, and just sitting in class with your wrist on your ear so you could hear what was happening in March Madness, filling out the brackets. And then when I worked in the city teaching, I was the guy for 9 years who ran the March Madness pool. Everybody took it it was a little $5 pool, but everybody, there was some intense rivalries between the teachers when we ran that. And it was a great kind of full circle moment last night. This is the second year we've done our family. Everybody fills out a bracket. My daughter, ironically enough, won it last year. So we were filling it out with them last night. And I will say my son went very, very chalky. Didn't really want to do the upsets. My daughter did it a lot with the math on it. So anxious to see who wins the second annual Montgomery Family March Madness pool. But it's my favorite. The next 2 days are going to be great. I got my iPad charging. I'll have it set up over here with the marchmadness.com where you can have the 4 games going on at a time, just watching it during my workday. But that does lead to today's question of the day. Which do you prefer? Because a lot of people say everything is like the Super Bowl of this, the Super Bowl of that. And the Super Bowl probably is the biggest sporting event in the world. But to me, if your team's not, like obviously this year aside because of the Eagles, but if your team's not in the Super Bowl, is it as big as March Madness? And I don't think it is. So what's your favorite sporting event? Would you prefer the Super Bowl or the March Madness tournament? 267-495-8531. That'll get you into the Back to the Future voice and text line. Get that. Anything else Philly sports related off your chest. Now, take this year's Super Bowl out of it because obviously it's different when your team's in it. But for me, give me Thursday through Sunday, nonstop basketball, and this is the best weekend, I think, of the sports year. But let me know your thoughts. All right, today we're going to stick with the March Madness theme. And yesterday was not a good day for the Big Five all time in history. However, on this day in 1954, one of the top 4 days in Big Five history happened. And on this day, LaSalle beat Bradley 92-67 down in Kansas City to win the national championship. They were down 1 at halftime, and then LaSalle came out and dominated the second half, outscoring the Braves 50-33. LaSalle was led by All-American Tom Gola, one of the greatest to ever do it in the NBA and college. But it was Charles Singley and Frank Blatch who led the Explorers in scoring on this day, 23 points each. Now, Gola, to his credit, scored 19, grabbed 19 rebounds. He was known as sort of the Magic Johnson, if you will, of his day. He could play all 5 positions. He could score. He could rebound, play defense. He did end up being the Final Four most outstanding player. LaSalle in that 53-54 season, though, they were 26-4, beat Fordham, number 10 North Carolina State, Navy, and Penn State to reach the final for the first national championship in Big Five history. And to date, they are the only other team besides Villanova to win a national championship in the Big Five. We know Villanova has done it 3 times. And in case you're keeping score at home, LaSalle has been to 2 Final Fours. We talked about them losing to Bill Russell and San Francisco yesterday. They beat Bradley. Nova's been there 7 times. The Temple Owls have been there twice. St. Joe's and Penn have each been there 1 time each. We'll get more into both of them later in this month. But that is it for the Big Five. And it seems crazy to think that at one point the Big Five was the mecca of sort of college basketball. And to only have 4 national titles total, that number really surprises me. Now, there are a couple NIT championships in there. LaSalle, I think Nova and Temple each won NIT before the big NCAA tournament. But kind of bleak history of the Big Five. But it is March Madness. Not going to let it get us down. It's the first day of spring. But on this day back in 1954, LaSalle, the Explorers, win the national championship led by All-American, future NBA, or pro basketball, I should say, Hall of Famer, Tom Gola. 19 points, 19 rebounds en route to the most outstanding player of the tournament. And then finally today, our Women's Big Five Hall of Fame spotlight is Kim Foley from St. Joe's. Kim played at St. Joe's from 1985 to 1989. And you know, anytime there's something educational, it's near and dear to my heart. She was a three-time academic All-American, which is just incredible. She was first team A10, first team Big Five, and all-district as a senior. She helped lead the Hawks to 4 straight NCAA tournaments. She was a 2-time captain. She was the Jesuit College Player of the Year in 1988. She graduated St. Joe's as the all-time leader in games played and currently is top 6 in points and rebounds. She did have a pretty decent pro career in Australia before coming home and coaching at Central Connecticut State for 6 years. She was inducted into the Big Five and the St. Joe's Hall of Fames in 1995. But today, Kim Foley from St. Joe's, you are a Women's Big Five Hall of Fame spotlight. Great player, 4-time NCAA Tournament participant, and something near and dear to my heart, a 3-time academic All-American. So Kim, shout out to you today as our Women's Big Five Hall of Fame spotlight. On this day in 1954, LaSalle beat Bradley 92-67 to win the national championship. First time a Big Five school won the NCAA tournament. And it's only happened 3 other times since, all by the Villanova Wildcats. Will we ever get there again? I would love to. My hopes are not high. Let me know your March Madness stories as well on the Back to the Future voice and text line. But is March Madness the greatest sporting event out there? I will certainly put that above the Super Bowl, just because today you got like 12, 13 hours of basketball, 12, 13 hours of basketball tomorrow. A little bit less on Saturday and Sunday, but still nonstop basketball all day. How could you not love that, especially with the product that the NBA is putting out right now? We'll have more on the Sixers, Flyers, and Phillies. Any thoughts on Taijuan Walker? Could be trouble. Let me know your thoughts on the tush push as well. Is it just the Packers being whiny little babies? That's kind of what I'm thinking. Be sure to check out Lenny's book on Walter French. But it's March Madness. Hopefully your brackets do not get busted early today. I've had some great first days. I've lost 2 Final Four teams in a national championship on the first day. I've basically run the gamut. So best of luck to you, unless you're playing in one of the pools that I'm a part of. And then I wish you the worst of luck. This has been This Day in Philly Sports History for March 20th, 2025. My name is Jim Montgomery. Go have yourselves a Thursday. And until next time, I'll see you when I see you.